That's correct, Xoli. In fact, it was the words of EFF leader Julius Malema saying that he cannot account for what the Parliamentary Ad Hoc Committee has been doing since the morning until this particular point where they really get to the meat of the issue. You'll remember that in the morning up until after the break around 2 p.m., the Chief Evidence Leader, Advocate Norman Arnser, had been looking at the issues surrounding his suspension, that is, the suspension of the former acting National Police Commissioner, Khomotso Phahlane, as well as those other matters that have been before the courts. And so it was the decision of the inquisitorial body not to sort of re-litigate those particular issues and instead focus on what is contained within the fact-finding body's terms of reference. And that is where we are now, where he essentially speaks about that alleged plot that was ventilated and really elucidated by Cedric Gabinde, the former chief of staff to the minister that's now been placed on leave of absence, that's Senzo Mchunu, of a plot between forensic investigator Paul O'Sullivan as well as former IPID head Robert McBride, also including particular journalists in this grand scheme to ensure that he does not ascend, at least permanently, to the position of National Police Commissioner. And so what he's told the Parliamentary Committee now is that essentially Robert McBride was acting as someone that was able to assist him in some of the issues that he faced, only to find that he was behind some of these particular challenges that bedeviled or hung over, lingered over the former National Police Commissioner. He speaks of Robert McBride really saying that it was former Hawks head, Burning Tlemeza, that was also part of his detractors, and that he was surprised to learn that Robert McBride had actually obtained footage from CCTV cameras after his alleged attack, in which he says that he was lucky to be alive. And so that is what we've heard at this point, but he's also spoken about political interference and also, interestingly, corroborating some of the evidence that's previously been given before the inquisitorial body in relation to when political interference within the SAPS actually began. Let's take a listen, Xoli.
We must not shy away. Political interference has been prevalent in the South African Police Service, and it became more prevalent following the 2007 Polokwane conference, where many of these things that leads to where you are taking me happened. Because from there on, we started seeing practices that were not the norm. I'm the last person to be appointed following a submission to cabinet. Everyone else that was appointed after my time, that process did not follow the cabinet process.
Now, Xoli, that particular information is important because you remember that it was the evidence of Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi, the top cop in the province of KwaZulu-Natal, before he appeared before Parliament, or rather the Commission of Inquiry that's investigating allegations of criminal infiltration and political interference, where he said that the most glaring instance of political interference that he saw was when he was acting National Police Commissioner. He also mentioned this when he was before the inquisitorial body of Parliament on the 7th and 8th of October 2025, where he said that that particular political interference that he witnessed was during the tenure of the now late Minister of Police, Nathi Mthethwa. You'll remember that he spoke of those charges against Richard Mdluli, the former crime intelligence head, that essentially he was accused of abusing the SAPS's slush fund between 2008 and 2012, and essentially that it was Nathi Mthethwa, the now late Nathi Mthethwa, that then pushed for that particular investigation not to be pursued into Richard Mdluli, and that is how he then was not able to continue pursuing that particular case. And that is when he said that was the glaring instance of political interference that he was able to witness, and also that it started after the ANC's 2017 Polokwane conference. But he also speaks about those that suspension. You remember that he started acting in the position of National Police Commissioner in 2015 after Ria Piega's suspension, but also was suspended in 2017 over misconduct charges. He says that it was not the place of the former police minister, Fikile Mbalula, to actually place him on suspension and ask him to step aside, because it is the powers of the president to appoint or relieve a national commissioner, whether they are in an acting capacity or permanent, of their duties in accordance with Section 207, subsection 1 of the Constitution. Let's just listen to what he had to say.
He set in motion the sequence of events that led to the first respondent, breaching the contract with EFG, that's the successful body bidder, and ultimately resulted in EFG having a claim for breach of contract against the first respondent. This ultimately resulted in the first respondent paying EFG an amount of 24,494,000. Again, that's what I'm reading to you. That's what a judge found.
Judge who?
Sorry?
Judge?
Judge Davey. Acting Judge
right.
Davey.
Chair, ordinarily, I will not want to dignify what that judge wrote there out of respect for the judiciary. Because if this was to be correct, it is me who on the 22nd of October 2014 saying to supply chain management in response that you have awarded a contract to a bidder whose product doesn't meet the specifications.
Now, Xoli, you'll remember that that particular contract is in relation to Etembeni, the company that was tasked with supplying certain cameras to the SAPS. But what the Labour Court found is that, or rather what was in dispute between this particular company as well as the SAPS, is the fact that the SAPS was not procuring or not requesting that the company actually provide those cameras to the SAPS, and that is what was in dispute at the time. You'll remember that that contract was entered into in 2014 when Khomotso Phahlane was the divisional head of or divisional commissioner of forensics, and that is what the lawmakers also took issue with, that that matter was being re-litigated before the inquisitorial body, where it is currently before the Labour Appeals Court. But of course, these proceedings are expected to continue at 5:30, after which we expect that they will conclude for the day at 9 p.m. Xoli.